I have only ever failed one shiny Pokemon because that moment scarred me forever. In November of 2017, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were released worldwide, and in the coming weeks, 11-year-old me beat the main story of Pokemon Ultra Sun. Upon beating the game, I, like many others, turned to shiny hunting. Now, this was the first Pokemon game that I ever actually shiny hunted in. I started with the SOS chain hunting method and got a Zorua with ease after just a couple days of hunting. I then decided to go for another. My favorite legendary Pokemon of all time, Latios. I loved Latios. For the longest time, it was my favorite legendary, until I decided to shiny hunt it. I started by finding one in the Ultra Wormholes, which, if you aren't familiar with Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, lead to various dimensions, each of which have different Pokemon that can spawn there. But upon finding my Latios, I had to actually reset for the shiny. I started resetting for it in November, and it wasn't until mid-February of the following year when I got it. But finally, it had showed up. And I failed it. Having just beaten the main story, my Pokemon were still just in their level 60s, and after my ease of catching the Zorua, I underestimated how difficult it would be. So, after throwing many Pokeballs at it and no Master Ball, it swept my team. And so that brings us to today, where I'll be reclaiming what was so rightfully mine all those years ago and re-hunting the shiny Latios in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. Because as of this video, it is the newest game that has Latios in it. But before I can worry about hunting or catching a shiny Latios, I have to be able to get Latios. Now, in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Latios is locked behind the post-game, meaning to even obtain one, I have to complete the Sinnoh Pokedex, of which I only have 56 out of 151. However, I didn't plan to play Brilliant Diamond much to complete the Pokedex. You see, the Legends Arceus and BDSP Pokedex are very similar, so I could use Legends Arceus, which is pretty much a better game in every way, to catch all the Pokemon I needed in BDSP and just transfer them over. And so I got to it, writing down 15 or 20 Pokemon that I didn't have at a time, and then going into Legends Arceus, seeing if I had them already, and if I didn't, catching them and moving them into Pokemon Home to be transferred into BDSP. And for some Pokemon, I don't have a Psyduck? Okay, we gotta change that, bud. Like Psyduck, it was just easier to find and catch them in BDSP. Now, there really isn't much to note here on any one Pokemon in particular. Most of them I already had because I have completed the Legends Arceus Pokedex. But there is one Pokemon of note that was particularly hard. Phoebus. If you have ever tried to complete a Sinnoh Pokedex, you probably saw this coming, because Phoebus and its evolution Milotic are generally the most time-consuming Pokemon to catch in BDSP. Why? Because Phoebus can only be found in this one body of water under Mount Coronet. And out of all of the tiles of water, it can only be found on 4 of them, and those 4 change each day. So that method was out. Luckily, in Pokemon Sword there is a Milotic that spawns in the wild when it's foggy. So I reset the date on my Switch until that area was foggy and found the Milotic. I caught it and decided it would be fastest to go catch a Ditto in Pokemon Sword and breed the Milotic for a Phoebus egg. Please use False Swipe. This is so funny. It's using False Swipe, and because it only takes you down to 1 HP, it's literally just not doing anything to me. Which was honestly pretty surprisingly easy, and only took like 20 minutes to get. And after transferring them into BDSP, I had 149 out of 149. Yeah, I kind of forgot Palkia and Manaphy, but after transferring them over, I had a complete Pokedex. Now I had access to Ramanas Park, the location of Latios, but before I could get Latios within the park, I needed Mysterious Shards, which can be exchanged for these slates. Each slate would unlock a different legendary Pokemon within the park. So I went to the Grand Underground, which is the only place you can find Mysterious Shards, because I can't just skip right to Latios. I first have to catch all 3 Regis and Latias. And since you can trade either 3 small shards for a slate or 1 large shard for a slate, I will have to get 15 small Mysterious Shards or 5 large Mysterious Shards, or more likely a mix of them. But with the large ones obviously being much rarer, I didn't expect this to be easy. I could not have been more wrong. It was so much more difficult than I expected. They were very rare, and after about 6 hours of searching for these shards in the underground, I finally had 9 small shards and no large ones in sight. so I decided to take a break to use these shards to catch the Regis. And while this would have been much easier if I didn't have to use all these shards to catch the other legendaries, having to do it was kind of a good thing, because as I mentioned before, I didn't have a Master Ball when I failed this shiny 5 years ago. So while I do have a Master Ball in Brilliant Diamond, I only plan to use it if something went horribly wrong when catching it. For now, I just tested the waters by trying my hand at the Regis, starting with Regis. I started the battle by false swiping it down to 1 HP and swiftly putting it to sleep. While it was asleep, I just threw Ultra Balls at it, and if it woke up, I would just Hypnosis it until it fell back asleep and rinse and repeat. I caught it with ease, and the same went for the other two Regis. Registeel was even easier than Regice, only taking 6 Ultra Balls, and Regirock, the easiest of them all, took just a single Ultra Ball. The Regis were much easier to catch than I had expected, but I still needed more mysterious shards, so I went back to the underground to do some more digging, and much quicker than before, after just a couple hours I had all 6 shards I needed. So I went back to Ramanas Park and tried for Latias, hoping that if this went well, after just a few more precautionary measures, I would be ready for Latios. I started by false swiping it down to 1 HP and using Hypnosis just like usual, and after just 5 Ultra Balls, it caught. Now this made me feel really confident in my ability to catch the Latios, however there was just one thing I was very worried about. I had been using Ultra Balls on all these legendaries so far, but I planned to catch my Latios in a Netball, because it matches its shiny perfectly. But a Netball is only effective on water and bug type Pokemon, neither of which Latios is, so it would have the same odds as a regular Pokeball. And so I began to prepare. I first obviously have my Gallade, who would use False Swipe, was a high level, and could put it asleep. I then caught a Banette and gave it a Lepa Berry, which restores 10 PP to a move when used. And with the move Trick, I'd be able to give the Latios the Lepa Berry so it wouldn't run out of moves and have to use Struggle, KOing itself. Ideally, I would also get a Pokemon with the ability Harvest, which makes it so a Pokemon can infinitely reuse a berry, and the move Skill Swap to give the Latios Harvest. But Exeggutor is very hard to get in BDSP, especially one with Harvest, its hidden ability, and it's the only Pokemon available in BDSP with the ability Harvest. I also had a Bronzong as a backup Pokemon with Hypnosis, and some other high-level Pokemon just to ensure that it didn't just KO my entire team like last time. So I went in, wanting to try catching a non-shiny one just to see how it went. I got it to 1 HP and asleep, but I immediately noticed it was doing way more damage than anyone before it, even KOing my Gallade, so I switched into Banette to get the Lepa Berry onto it. From then on, I switched into Bronzong and realized just how good it really was, because while it was only level 61, it took way less damage than Gallade ever had been, and just a matter of turns later, I was able to get it in a Netball. It was finally time. All I had to do now was reset for the shiny and get a little lucky, because without the shiny charm or any other ways to boost my odds, this hunt was a full odds 1 in 4,096 chance of being shiny. And with each reset taking about 50 seconds to a minute, this was gonna be a long one. I guess it could be, actually could it even? Oh! 26?! Oh, I can't take this right now. I literally cannot take this right now. I cannot take this right now. That is a full odds shiny Latios in 26! I'm just gonna stick to the plan. The nerves were very real. I absolutely did not expect to get it in less than 100 encounters, let alone 26. So to say I was not exactly prepared mentally would be an understatement. Regardless, I false swiped it down to 1 HP and put it to sleep. Then I started throwing netball after netball. I switched into Banette very early on, after it KO'd my Gallade to get the Lepa Berry onto it. However, it just wouldn't catch. I mean, I was getting very close with a couple double, even triple shakes, but they never caught. Then it used the Lepa Berry, which really scared me, because the timer that was how many moves Latios could use had started, and if I didn't catch it before it ran out of PP, it was over. Then it happened. It started using the move Dragon Dance once, twice in a row, and because Dragon Dance is its highest PP move and the AI will always prioritize attacking moves, and Dragon Dance isn't an attacking move, it was running out of PP fast. So, as my turns were running out, I did it. I wasn't going to let it slip away again, and while it's not nearly as cool as the netball, I had to do it knowing that at any moment it could struggle and I would lose it forever. The shiny that took me 5 years to find, I finally had my redemption.